I never believed a single test could rewrite a man's entire existence. But the day I spat into a tiny tube for a random DNA kit, I had absolutely no idea that my whole identity, my bloodline, my past, my future, was about to be ripped open like a sealed vault. I was adopted at birth, raised by a kind but financially struggling couple who never hid the truth. I wasn't biologically theirs. Growing up, that truth never hurt me. I had a home, a family, a life. But some nights, I wondered who I truly was. Not enough to search, not enough to chase ghosts. Until, at 35, out of boredom more than curiosity, I clicked Order Now on a DNA test. A joke, a moment of impulsive entertainment, or so I thought. 3 weeks later, at 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Normally, I ignore notifications that late, but something nudged me to open it. The screen loaded, then froze, as if the universe itself took a breath with me. One name, one match. The result punched the air out of my lung. Parent match, 99.97%. Relationship, father. And the name beneath it didn't feel real. It looked like something out of a news headline. A billionaire industrialist whose face I'd seen on magazines at grocery store checkout lines. A man who had his own private island, private jet, private security force. A man who had died very publicly just weeks before. Before I could even process what any of it meant, my email pinged again. This time, from a law firm so prestigious I had to Google them twice to confirm they were real. We request your immediate presence. It concerns the estate of the late Mr. Alexander Hawthorne. Their tone wasn't casual. It wasn't optional. They knew who I was before I even knew who I was. The next morning, I walked into a conference room that smelled like money. Polished wood, imported stone, soft lights that probably cost more than my monthly rent. 3 lawyers waited inside, all in suits so sharp they could cut skin. One of them slid a folder toward me, his voice steady, but his eyes strangely nervous, as if he were about to ignite a bomb. "Mr. Hawthorne," he said, "you are the biological son and sole heir of Alexander Hawthorne." I laughed. It sounded insane, impossible. But the proof was in front of me. DNA paperwork, signed confessions from private investigators he'd hired years ago, journal entries from the billionaire himself, and then the list of assets. His penthouse overlooking the city skyline, his $70 million yacht, his companies, his lands, and a mysterious vault the lawyers only referred to as the Hawthorne Gold Reserve, a vault so secret that even newspapers had speculated about its contents for decades. Ancient coins, historical artifacts, classified documents, maybe even evidence of crimes buried by wealth and power. My hands shook, my mind blurred. I wasn't just someone. I was someone with a legacy that stretched across continents, tied to a man who never met me, yet left everything to me. But then came the sentence that froze the air, the room, my heartbeat. Someone attempted to remove your name from the will. Their eyes darkened as if they were afraid to speak the next part. And they merely succeeded. My breath lodged in my throat. I had lived 35 quiet, uneventful years. Who on earth would want to erase me from a will I never even knew existed? They exchanged glances before finally revealing a name, one that would change the course of my life forever. Victor Hawthorne, Alexander's younger brother, a man who had spent decades in the shadow of his billionaire sibling. A man whose greed was so legendary that magazines joked he would steal pennies from fountains if he could. a man who was supposed to inherit everything, until my existence appeared like a dagger aimed at his future. Suddenly, every headline I remembered clicked into place. Hawthorne family rift. Billionaire cuts brother off. Inheritance war rumors. The reason? Me. My father had discovered my existence 5 years ago. He tried to reach me, even hired investigators, but the adoption records were sealed. But Victor, he found out first, and instead of helping my father find me, he paid to bury my name, bury my identity, and he nearly buried my future. From that day, everything changed. My quiet life evaporated. Journalists showed up. Reporters stalked me. Strangers claimed they were my cousins. But under all of that noise, something darker simmered. Calls with no caller ID. Cars that followed me at night. A drone that hovered outside my apartment window for 20 minutes. I wasn't naive. I knew it was him. Victor, a man who spent his life craving what his brother had, only to lose everything in one DNA match. And then came the night. I was nearly run off the road by a black SUV. The police called it a traffic incident. I called it what it was: a warning, a message, a claim. You may have his blood, but I will take everything he left you. I moved into the penthouse immediately, not for comfort, but for safety. It had biometric locks, panic rooms, bulletproof windows, and a surveillance system that could track a cockroach across the street. The lawyers gave me full access to my father's files, journals, accounts, everything. And that's when I learned the truth. Alexander had known Victor was planning a coup within the company, trying to illegally transfer assets behind the scenes, trying to forge documents to claim the gold vault, trying to siphon offshore accounts. My father hadn't been blind. He had been preparing a counterstrike. But he died before he could execute it. His death had been ruled a heart attack, natural causes. But after reading through those documents, I couldn't shake the suspicion crawling inside me like a parasite. What if it wasn't natural at all? What if Victor had grown tired of waiting? The idea consumed me. Every day, every night, and slowly a fire ignited inside me. Not fear, not confusion, but something colder, sharper, more dangerous. Revenge. Not the chaotic kind, but the kind that dismantles an enemy piece by piece until nothing remains of their empire, their power, their name. I started with information. My father's private investigator, an old, wiry man named Cole, met me in a dimly lit diner at midnight. He slid a USB across the table like he was handling explosives. "Your father didn't trust many people," he said, "but he trusted me, and he knew Victor would come for you." On the USB were recordings, meetings, financial transactions, secret conversations Victor had with board members, bribed lawyers, even hired mercenaries. Evidence that Victor had been planning, not just to steal the inheritance, but potentially murder anyone in his way, including me. That was the moment I stopped being the abandoned child who stumbled into fortune. I became something else, someone else. A man with nothing left to lose, but everything to avenge. I started infiltrating the company, using my rightful access as owner. I fired half the board within a week, froze offshore accounts Victor relied on, reassigned divisions he controlled. Every move made him weaker and more desperate. He sent men to intimidate me. I sent lawyers to destroy him. He tried to leak scandals about me. I released documents exposing his decades-long financial fraud. The media devoured him. Investors abandoned him. His allies turned to dust. But I wasn't done. Not until I confronted him face to face. That day came when the lawyers informed me that the Hawthorne Gold Reserve could now be opened, only by me. The vault was hidden beneath a decommissioned estate on the outskirts of the city, guarded like a military bunker. When we arrived, the security team opened massive steel doors that groaned like a sleeping beast awakening. Inside, golden artifacts glimmered under soft lights. Coins from ancient civilizations, ceremonial weapons, bars stamped with marks long forgotten. But my eyes weren't on the gold. They were on the man standing in the shadows at the far end of the vault. Victor, his face hollow, eyes burning with hatred, hands shaking as if the gold around him were slipping from his fingers. "It should have been mine," he hissed. "All of it. He loved me like a son." I stepped closer, feeling the weight of both our bloodlines between us. "He loved me," I replied quietly. "An actual son." He lunged, pulling a small gun from his jacket. But I had expected it. Security tackled him, the gun clattering across the gold-plated floor. As they restrained him, he spat curses at me, venom dripping from every word. "You ruined me. You stole my life." "No," I said calmly, stepping over to him as his breath trembled. "You did that yourself." The police stormed in moments later, armed with warrants, documents, and evidence I had spent weeks collecting. Victor Hawthorne was arrested on charges ranging from attempted murder to grand fraud to conspiracy. Cameras flashed. Reporters screamed. The billionaire's forsaken brother was dragged out of the vault he had tried so desperately to claim. But revenge wasn't complete. Not yet. 3 months later, I sat in court. The same room where my father once battled corporate enemies now held the broken remains of the man who tried to erase me. The judge read the charges. Victor's lawyers begged for mercy. None came. When the verdict was announced, Victor turned his head toward me, eyes hollow, defeated, shattered beyond repair. "You think you won?" he muttered through cracked lips. I leaned forward, my voice cold as the vault where he fell. "I didn't win," I whispered. "You lost, the moment you tried to erase me." He was sentenced to decades in prison, and in that moment, the weight of my father's legacy settled on me. Not as a burden, but as a crown forged through truth, blood, and justice. When I walked out of that courtroom, reporters swarmed me, cameras flashing like fireworks. But I wasn't thinking about them, the money, the empire, or even the gold vault. I was thinking of my father, the man who tried to find me, protect me, save me, and how, in the end, I saved everything he died trying to preserve. And I avenged every attempt to erase my existence.